Dr. Samuel Johnson and his preface to Shakespeare. Dr. Samuel Johnson was born in 1709 and he died in 1784. The name of Dr. Johnson is synonymous with the 18th century English literature. It is synonymous with 18th century English literature. He was a lexicographer, he was an essayist, he was a critic, he was a poet also. He was the subject of one of the best biographies written in English language, The Life of Dr. Samuel Johnson by James Boswell. Boswell has written this biography of Dr. Johnson. He is the central figure there. So he is subject to that biography, which is supposed to be the best biography, one of the best biographies of English literature. The life of Dr. Johnson and the work of Dr. Johnson is formidable. It's worth reading. In order to understand English literature, you have to understand Dr. Samuel Johnson. He came from an humble background, a modest background. His father was a vendor, a bookseller, and he was very sick. He says that I was born dead. He was very sick in his childhood, tuberculosis and allergies and different problems. His face was disfigured. Physically, he was not attractive. His face had scars. And when he was 30 months old, he was taken to the queen because people believed that if the sovereign touches a sick child, the child survives. ऐसी मान्यता थी उस समय कि राजा या रानी छू दे तो बच्चा ठीक हो जाता है. उनके माता पिता उनको लेके गए थे और ये कारण तो नहीं रहा होगा, पर वो फिर धीरे धीरे ठीक हो गए. और जिस हिसाब से भी उनका विकास हुआ, एंटीबॉडीज बने होंगे, जो भी फिजिकल प्रोसेसेस, मेंटल प्रोसेसेस, व्हाटएवर ही वेंट थ्रू, ही इवेंचुअली बिकेम अ वेरी स्टर्डी पर्सन, फिजिकली अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग पर्सन. तो ये सारे किस्से, once he was not happy with somebody on the stage, he threw that person out of the stage with all his physical power. Once the robbers came to him to take away his watch, and he held them, just crushed them and waited for the police, and when the watch came, then he left them. तो वो जो पकड़ने वाले थे, जो चोर थे, वही उनसे माफ़ी मांग रहे थे. He grew to be a very strong person physically from a person who was so sickly in childhood. तो बहुत ही eventful, a life of tenacity, perseverance, talent, hard work, practice, continuous hard work. He did not lower his standards ever. He was someone who believed that being born into a poor family does not define you. It does not define you at all. Your efforts define you. तो ऐसे डॉक्टर जॉनसन का पूरा वो हुआ. ऐसा भी कह सकते हैं, कई लोग कहते थे कि थोड़ा सा गुस्सैल थे. He was very because he was no nonsense kind of a person. No nonsense kind of a person. He did not entertain useless talk at all. So he went to the grammar school in 1717, 1717, and there the teacher John Hunter, उनका नाम ही हंटर था टीचर का. So he beat him a lot. उस समय बच्चों को काफ़ी मारा जाता था पढ़ाने के दौरान. And he was afraid of that name all through his life. Even as an adult, people tell that his granddaughter of that teacher was a poet, and he could not meet her simply because she reminded him of that teacher who was very strict with students. There he made two lifelong friends, Edmund Hector and John Taylor. मतलब दोस्त मतलब ऐसे वैसे दोस्त नहीं, मतलब असली वाले दोस्त जिसको कहते हैं. डॉक्टर जॉनसन्स लाइफ इज अ लाइफ ऑफ फ्रेंडशिप. James Boswell came to him late in life. I think it was 1755, quite late in life. But James Boswell and Dr. Johnson, the friendship resulted in that beautiful biography where both of them have been immortalized. इतने स्नेह से लिखी है वो जीवनी, बहुत ही सुंदर. Why my friend laughs and why he gets angry and the way he eats and the way he gulps and the way he thinks and the way he speaks, और इतनी जिंदा किताब है वो. Very lively, very live. You cannot put that book aside. ऐसी किताब है वो. तो डॉक्टर जॉनसन्स लाइफ is an example of the best that friendship can offer. When he was going through very difficult times, I think it was Edmund Hector, who supported him financially, रहने के भी लिए सारा उनका इंतज़ाम किया, काफ़ी उनको मदद किया. He entered Oxford University 1728 and अब तो ये किवदंती हो गई है, सबको पता है कि फीस के पैसे ना होने के कारण वो अपना ग्रेजुएशन कंप्लीट नहीं कर पाए थे. He left Oxford University after 13 months. And the point to be noted is that he loved his alma mater so much. Even after that, even after the fact that he could not complete his degree due to lack of funds, he nurtured deep love for Oxford, deep affection for his teachers all his life. वो कहते हैं कि वहाँ मुझे जो पुस्तक मिली, जो पुस्तक मुझे वहाँ पर मिली, सीरियस कॉल टू अ डिवाउट एंड होली लाइफ बाय विलियम लॉ. सीरियस कॉल टू अ डिवाउट एंड होली लाइफ. डॉक्टर जॉनसन कहते हैं कि इस किताब ने मेरी ज़िंदगी बना दी, ऑक्सफोर्ड ने मेरी ज़िंदगी बना दी. So even when he had to come out of Oxford without a degree, he loved his institution a lot. और फिर हम सब जानते हैं कि 1738 देखना पड़ेगा एग्जैक्ट डेट, डिक्शनरी के पब्लिकेशन के जस्ट पहले Oxford conferred the degree of Master of Arts on Dr. Johnson. He was conferred the degree of Master of Arts, and rightly so. I mean, he deserved every bit of it. So 1735 onwards we have a mature Dr. Johnson, and he believed that his parents fought a lot. बहुत झगड़ा करते थे उनके माँ बाप. वो सोचते थे कि मेरी माँ पढ़ी लिखी नहीं है, शायद इस वजह से झगड़े होते हैं. So he wanted a very mature, a very educated और बहुत ही समझदार पत्नी की तलाश थी. And he married a widow who was quite senior to him. Quite senior to him in age, and from that seed money that the lady got in her divorce, they opened a school. वहाँ से थोड़ी सी financial stability आती है. और 1755 he was conferred MA by Oxford University, और उनका जो कोटेशन, जिस कोटेशन को वो बहुत मानते थे, स्लो राइजेस वर्थ बाय पॉवर्टी डिप्रेस्ड। कितना भी कोई योग्य क्यों ना हो, गरीबी ज़रूर कुचल देती है। सो ही न्यू हार्ड फैक्ट्स ऑफ लाइफ. He knew, my father used to tell a story of Dr. Johnson when I was a child. बार बार पापा मेरे सुनाते थे एक कहानी कि his father once asked him to go to a fair and sell the books and goodies there, and he did not listen to his father. His father suffered a lot and he was not well. He was sick, and still he went and stood there day to evening. And when his father died, long after that, to compensate as a measure of penance, Dr. Johnson went there and stood in the fair in hot sun from day to evening. अपने पिता की याद में वो दिन भर वहाँ, और उनको स्किन प्रॉब्लम थी, suffered a lot, but he kept standing. So he was that kind of a person. He wrote the first dictionary of English language, compiled the first dictionary of English language, so which is quite revolutionary in his own way. He was a very good lexicographer. He took 9 years to write Preface to Shakespeare. सोच सकते हैं आप, एक प्रस्तावना लिखने के लिए 9 साल तक उन्होंने पढ़ाई की. He studied, kept studying history, context, all the plays of Shakespeare, each word, hundreds of times. He understood everything. He just grasped Shakespeare in totality, and then he wrote his preface to Shakespeare, and that's why his points have become fundamental tenets of modern criticism. मॉडर्न इंग्लिश क्रिटिसिज्म के बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स डॉक्टर जॉनसन से आते हैं. ही राइट्स विथ अथॉरिटी विच इज़ टिपिकल ऑफ द 18th सेंचुरी. मतलब बिल्कुल ये बात बिल्कुल सच है. आज की डेट में अगर हम बोलते हैं, जैसे मैं ही बोलती हूँ, तो मैं बोलूँगी कि भाई मैं ऐसा कहती हूँ, आप अपना देख लीजिए. आप हमसे एग्री करते हैं तो करिए, और नहीं करते हैं तो मत करिए. ऐसे बात करते हैं हम लोग डर डर के. ऐसा उस समय नहीं था. डॉक्टर जॉनसन sat on the seat of a judge. He was judgmental. He said that yes, he gave sweeping generalizations. He gave very stunning statements, very different from today, or they are valid. Those words have become the principles of modern criticism. कि मतलब किसी की आलोचना से मतलब नहीं है. किसी को समझने के लिए, किसी को एनालाइज करने के लिए पहले उसका ज्ञान ले लीजिए. एंड वंस यू हैव दैट डेप्थ, then you have the right to say what you want to say. So immense authority. He spoke with immense authority. कि आप Shakespeare, why you made a tragic person play with words? एक दुखी आदमी को आप फन एंड फ्रॉलिक और ऐसे शब्द के जाल में वो फंसा हुआ है. हाउ इज इट पॉसिबल? He raised that point. Poetic Justice. Dr. Johnson was so disturbed with the fate of Cordelia. इतनी अच्छी लड़की. She was so good. Why did she die? Shakespeare. अगर Shakespeare सामने होता तो वो पकड़ के उसको बोलते कि why did she die? She was virtuous. Her virtue perished. So he was very disturbed with the Cordelia's fate. तो वो जो his criticism of Shakespeare, his pointing out faults of Shakespeare has so much depth. It has so much depth that that criticism in itself has become praiseworthy. इस तरह का उन्होंने character analysis he started for the first time. For the first time he took dramatic characters as human beings and started deriving universal truths out of them. Later we see कोलरिज ने उन्हीं का ट्रेंड फॉलो किया, लैम्ब ने किया, और सबसे बड़ा AC ब्रैडले ने किया. AC Bradley followed the model of Dr. Samuel Johnson. So, sound understanding of human nature comes out of Shakespeare. ऐसा उनका मानना था, ऐसा उन्होंने बोला. So, practical application of critical rules, and he's compared Shakespeare to ancient writers, to modern writers in a very, very systematic manner. So, the criticism of Dr. Samuel Johnson tells us that criticism should be based on sound knowledge. A judge has to be learned. He says that study literary traditions, study history, study all the context. किसी किताब के संदर्भों को समझना ज़रूरी है. The writer, where he has taken from somebody, where he has borrowed words, where the writer is original, you should be able to point out. So this is the fundamental Shakespearean criticism. Criticism itself has been raised to the level of creative literature. यहाँ पर criticism रचनात्मक लेखन जितना सुंदर और रचनात्मक लेखन जितना अच्छा हो गया है. Criticism has been raised to the level of creative writing in case of Dr. Johnson. तो ये बात यहाँ पर important है. He says that sudden statements by a writer do not work. He should have sound understanding of human nature, and the works of Shakespeare rise above individual. They are universal. इस तरह से डॉक्टर जॉनसन का criticism है. We will continue to discuss Dr. Johnson because it requires more. I think it requires more rumination. It requires more analysis. It requires more explanation, and it's very interesting. Thank you.